Welcome to the Back to Basics podcast, a space where we share refreshing and honest conversations on all things pregnancy, birth, and parenting. I'm your host, Nicole, and I'm a mom, holistic childbirth educator and coach, and founder of Ruby Mamas. Today we have Claire. She's a mom, poet, and researcher. She shares how living in a foreign country during a pandemic affected her pregnancy, and how her distrust in industrial medicine led her to birthing at home, and the importance of why women need rituals and healers. Quick disclaimer, we talk about sexual assault and mental illness.
Everybody, hi Nicole. My name is Clare Engenoi. I am currently living in London with my family. My partner's name is Mark, and we met in Kenya a long time ago, 10 years ago, and we stayed on and off over the years, but officially we became a couple about a year and a half ago. And we have our 7-week-old son. His name is Louis. He was born January this year, and he's brought us a lot of joy and a lot of shits and giggles. He's growing every day so fast, and we're learning so much about him every day. And yeah, so I'm a new mom. I'm a writer. I'm a poet. I also do some research work, but I don't think I'm going to be working much this year because I'm really just embracing motherhood in all its forms. And yeah, that's me. And I should say, actually, I thought I was going to go back to school in September for my master's because I really wanted to do consultancy work. Mm-hmm. But after having Louis, everything changed. Like, initially, I thought, like, I'm going to be itching to go back to work. I'm going to be itching to get back to school and, like, do life because I'm still young and I wanted to accomplish all these things. And then after my labor and giving birth in the first month with him, I was like, yo, I've just done the hardest job in my life.
For real.
And I need a break. I need to focus on just, like, getting better, becoming a mom. It's a whole journey. So yeah, I'm probably just going to be doing that for a while.
Right. I feel like a year is like good time to just adjust.
Not even enough. Just to adjust, and then like another year to kind of figure yourself out, and then after that you can start thinking about what's next.
Right. Why don't we get into your story? You can start from your pregnancy.
So my pregnancy started in South Africa. My partner is South African born, and we traveled there last year in March to visit his family because we'd just been recently engaged. And then the lockdown happened, and South Africa's lockdown was strict and harsh. So no one was allowed in or out of the country for quite some time. Mm-hmm. And Mark and I ended up alone in his family's home because his family were not in the country when the lockdown happened. They were supposed to fly in just after us. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we were alone in this house, enjoying life, really. And then I said to Mark, we might as well make a baby. And at first he thought I was joking. And at first I kind of was. But then, like, the more I thought about it, I realized it's a pandemic. I'm not going to get employed because I was just about to graduate. And I was like, no one's going to be hiring graduates right now. And I was like, if ever there's a time to take a year off, this is the year. And to an extent, that's true. But Mark's argument was, why would you want to have a baby during a pandemic? Like, it's a health crisis. We need health care. And to be fair, it's been hard because not really because of healthcare, but because of all these lockdowns and closures and not being able to see friends and family and getting stuck abroad for so long. So we were in South Africa for 7 months. And we were only supposed to be there for 2 weeks. So it was a really long and unexpected journey in a country that I wasn't ever thinking to have my baby in.
Yeah.
And we just left in the nick of time. And to be honest, because of the fact that I was somewhere that I didn't think I would be giving birth, I didn't have so much like prenatal care. To be honest with you, I did some scans in a hospital. And then when I was about 5 months pregnant, there was a lot of pressure from both families for me to stay there and have the baby there. Yeah. And so I decided, let me look for a midwife, because the one thing I knew for certain was I didn't want to have a hospital birth. Like that's one thing I knew for sure. And that's because of my own negative experiences in the healthcare system. I have been diagnosed. I don't think I have it, but I've been diagnosed with bipolar, and this was after being hospitalized with psychosis. And my whole treatment and my experience of healthcare really shifted, because I used to have faith in the system. But after this particular experience of having to be in the hospital I was there for 3 months, I realized these people don't even know what they're doing, and they're the people I should trust the least. So after that experience, which was like 3 years ago, I just kind of went the whole opposite direction. I centered my life around wellness and alternative healing, and I did Reiki, yoga, lots of different types of alternative holistic healing, and it worked really well for me, and I was happy with it. And I vowed never to give birth in a hospital, because as someone with a history of psychosis, trauma can trigger that.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of PTSD as well, and complex PTSD is what bipolar is. And any kind of trauma can trigger an episode. And obviously, giving birth in a hospital, you're just signing up for trauma, because these places are so clinical, so monetized, and like everything's organized in a certain kind of way, and it's not about you, it's about them. And I knew that if I wanted to avoid any relapse, the best thing for me to do would be to have a safe birth, and a safe birth meant being at home. So even though I knew I wasn't giving birth in South Africa, I knew I was giving birth at home. And I didn't know where that would be. So initially, we were supposed to move to Uganda, and I contacted a midwife when I found out I was pregnant in Uganda. And we had a few calls, and she was just like, "Oh, don't worry so much. Enjoy your pregnancy. I'll see you when you get here." But that never happened because of COVID, so we never got to live in Uganda. That's where we were supposed to live. Instead, we're living in London, because this was legally the only place me and my partner could be in, immigration-wise. I'm a resident here. I'm half English, and he was a student here, and he's got a residence permit. So this is the only country that we could legally both be in. And I'm really grateful that it's this country, because here you have more access to resources for home births. And so, yeah, we got here. I was 7 months pregnant. I only had 3 months to prepare, and we had to find a new home and make the house a home, and get all the resources. We got a birthing pool. When I arrived here, I was kind of shocked at how anti-home birth this system was. I mean, in South Africa, it was expected, because South Africa is a lot like Kenya, very clinical, very profit-based. It's like they just want to make money from you. They'll C-section you ASAP. But here the healthcare is free, so I thought that they would be more open to like home births because it's free. Like you don't really need resources for a home birth.
Right.
But yeah, I was wrong. They were still very much trying to push me into a hospital. To the point they called me a week before my baby was born to say that if there was an emergency, they wouldn't be sending an ambulance because of COVID, and that I was the last priority. And I was like, cool,
And they're supposed to be
no
helping you
problem.
though.
Yeah, that was the threat. They were threatening me to try and force me to give birth in a hospital. And I literally told them, like, this is not okay. I said, my due date is a week away and you're calling me to put all this negativity on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I've had enough. Since I've come here, all you've done is tell me about all the things that can and will go wrong. I want to believe that nothing will go wrong. And at this far, like into my pregnancy, I don't want to hear it. I literally said, I don't want to hear it. And sure enough, I went into labor like a few days later. So yeah, that's, I don't know, I kind of like waffled on a little bit, but
Yeah.
my pregnancy journey has taken place across 2 different countries. I've had 2 very different experiences. It's been a huge change because I haven't had much time. I didn't have much time to plan or think about things because so much was going on around us. But I'm very blessed and I'm very happy that I got to have my home birth. It was mainly unattended. And I should also mention, we got a birth keeper for my home birth, which was amazing. And I really, really recommend anyone who's thinking about doing a home birth to look into getting a birth keeper. They are like laying midwives. They're not midwives and they're not doulas. They simply are like sisters who hold your space. They're very different. They don't work off of medical guidelines. They work off of your needs and what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been working with Natasha since I think it was May or June, really not long after finding out we were pregnant. Or maybe it was July. It was my second trimester. So it must have been July. And we were still in South Africa, and I didn't even know if we were going to be in London for the birth, but I wanted to have someone with that kind of background guiding me through my pregnancy journey. And she's made such a big difference in our lives. She really set the foundation for how things happened and how things were done in our pregnancy and in our labor. She really protected me because we did end up having midwives at the last part of my labor. I had been in labor for 28 hours and I was like man down. By the time we got to 24 hours, I was like, nah, I need some medical people here. I need to know what's going on. And she was like, don't do it. You're just transitioning. This is the last part, Claire. And I was like, nah. I didn't listen to her. I wish I listened to her. But anyway, we had midwives interrupt the process towards the end, which is a big first child. I learned from my mistakes. But Natasha held us down. She held us down real, like, and she was there postpartum as well. She came with nipple pads. She came with food. She came with foot rubs. She came with oils, and she really came through. And she carried me. She carried my baby. And honestly, she made this experience so magical for both me and my partner. And we're really, 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 really glad we had her with us for our journey. And she really believes in the power of a woman, you know, and when you're going through the depths of labor, it's really important to have someone there who can tell you you're strong, you can do this, like, this is what you want. Don't change your mind. You're capable. Especially when your labor is endless. So yeah, shout out to Natasha. She was great. And she was the only consistent thing about our pregnancy as well, because she's been with us since the beginning.
Yeah.
She's journeyed with us through the countries. She's really seen us grow and change and transform. She's seen our home change from when we moved in. It was just like an empty flat with no carpet, with no plants. She saw all the plants coming in and the rugs and the map on the wall. And like, she saw us turn our house into a home.
Yeah.
And actually, we're moving into her apartment, which is up for rent in a couple of weeks. So we're actually going to end up living on her street. She's going to be my neighbor, which is crazy. Like,
That's
you
so
can't
cool.
even, I know, you can't even plan this stuff. It just like happens.
It wasn't planned?
No, we needed somewhere to stay because we've been having issues with our home, and our landlord, and she had a tenant. She also has a property that she rents out, and the tenant gave her notice. The same day I called her to say I'm having difficulties with my landlord and my apartment, and she said, oh, well, my tenant literally just sent me a message today saying that she's leaving next month. Would you like to move in? And I said, whoa, seriously? And she was like, yeah, we need someone to live there. I won't advertise the place. You guys figure it out and come live here if you're really having that much issues, because we're having a lot of issues. And I was like, oh my God. And I said, like, let me just make this happen, because obviously we'd only been living in our apartment for 3 months. We have a contract, but I kind of managed to weasel around it. And yeah, we're moving into it. It's a godsend. It's a lot nicer. It's bigger. It's cleaner for sure. And there's a park right next to it. It's going to be great for the baby. So yeah, you never know how things are going to work out in this life. But get a breath keeper, because they might end up being your landlord. So that's my pregnancy journey. What did I do to prepare for my birth? I just hired Natasha, and
she did the rest.
I had faith in her, and I had faith in myself. I didn't like, I know a lot of women like watch videos and plan things, and I wish I had that luxury, but there was a lot going on, moving countries, living in this house, trying to sort out everything. By the time I had time to think about actually labor and giving birth, the baby was already here, and he came early. It's not like he was sitting around waiting for me to watch YouTube videos. I am the worst example of planning, because I did not plan anything. Things just happened because I had the will to execute a home birth. Like I said in the beginning, that's the one thing I wanted, and that's the one thing I knew that I wanted, was to birth in my home. And so I made it happen. I don't know how. I think a big part of it was faith. Faith in myself, faith in God, faith in the universe, faith in my ancestors, and faith in the people that I had chosen to birth with, my partner, Natasha, and our family friend Rachel, who is a retired midwife. I selected my team very carefully, and there was literally only the four of us in the room for the 24 hours. So I just had a lot of faith in the people that I chose to be around during this period, and I had faith in myself that I would be able to do it. And I had faith in God that He would keep us safe. And I had faith in the universe that I was divinely protected and guided. And I actually had a very magical labor, magical experience with my child. There was some parts of it that were difficult, but overall, like, I feel very blessed because I didn't really plan any of this, but somehow it happened.
It just worked out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was thinking before we get into your birth story, you could maybe explain to us what care with the birth keeper looked like, especially since it wasn't in person. Maybe for people who don't know exactly what you'd get with a birth keeper opposed to a doctor or a midwife.
Okay, so a birth keeper is like in the name. They hold you during your pregnancy, during your birth, and postnatally. So you'd work with them not just like as a one-off. You really have to get to know, you form a really strong bond and a relationship with this person because you work through the early stages of your pregnancy, what you might be feeling, what you might be thinking, the questions you might have. And you develop your relationship as you develop your pregnancy, and you build on those things. And what they really want to establish with you is what you want, what your needs are, and they do the best that they can to make sure that you have the birth that you envisioned and that you want. And I think a big thing like that they ask of you is to have faith in them, because a lot of birth keepers don't want to work with midwives. They don't want to work with medical professionals, because a deep belief with them is that medical professionals don't hold women. They don't hold women's spaces. And I can agree with this a lot because, you know, if you give birth in a hospital and you are not dilating at a certain rate, they will intervene to make you dilate faster, or try to. They will inject you with oxytocin or something, and then if you're pushing for too long, they'll intervene and use like forceps or some other contraptions that they stick in your vagina and pull the baby out. They can cut you open with the scissors that they cut vaginas. They do all this obtrusive and like violent things to women, just because things are not going on their schedule.
And they
And a
hide
birth
it.
keeper, they don't even hide it. They make you think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah,
That's
they
the
hide it under
messed
the
up
guise
thing.
that they're helping you, you know? They think they're
Yeah,
saving
it's
you.
emotional abuse. Because yeah, they make it seem like they're doing you a favor when they're actually really messing you up. And so this is what birth keepers believe, is that if you're gonna be in a hospital, you've already signed yourself up for failure, because it's very unlikely that you will have no interventions in a hospital. And why is this a bad thing? Well, when you go into labor and you journey with your baby through that process, you're tapping into the most like raw power that you have as a woman. And we had these conversations with Natasha, and I came to realize after having the baby that going through labor and giving birth to a child is the most powerful thing you can do as a woman. It's incredible. It's incredible what our bodies are capable of doing. And, you know, growing a baby is one thing, but birthing a baby, that is a crazy experience. And you journey through ages, you know, you experience things that you can't even describe in words. And the moment when you meet your baby, it's just like, whoa. It's very intense, right? It's an intense process. And when you trust a system that's built on patriarchy, you are allowing people to take that power, or to claim that power, or to say that it is not power.
Yeah.
And this is what my birth keeper reminded me of, is that, you know, these systems are not designed to teach you how powerful you are. They're designed to continue creating violence upon women. They continue to to diminish the strength and the power that we actually have as women. And if you go through that process uninterrupted, it changes everything. It changes your perspective. It changes who you are. It changes what you are capable of and what you think you're capable of. Really, it's given me a really big confidence boost that I didn't have before. I feel like I can do anything I want for the first time in my life. And I'm like, let me actually think about what that is. So
Oh my,
I think it
for
was, yeah, it was really important having a birth keeper, just to make you realize these things that you don't even think about. Like I told you, I didn't really plan things so much. I just knew what I wanted, and I've always trusted my instincts, you know, my gut. That's what like really drives me. And to have someone there to say, you're right, this is true, this is why, this is, maybe you're feeling this because of this. Um, and birth keepers are the complete opposite to any kind of medical professional. If you labor for 50 hours, they don't care. Some women have really long labors. It's got nothing to do with the schedule. Um, it's just how your baby decides they want to come into this world. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Some women labor for 10 minutes and they have their baby. It doesn't matter. A birth keeper doesn't look at a book and say, you should be dilated by this time, and if you're not, we're going to do this to you. Or you should have your placenta born by this time, and if not, then we're going to do this to you. A birth keeper is so different, because what they do is just encourage you and guide you and let you journey and let your baby journey with you. And they just remind you that you're powerful, that you're capable, that you're strong. And that's, they don't time your contractions. They don't measure the baby's heart rate, which is what midwives would do. They don't um they don't do anything except encourage you. They'll encourage you to try different positions when you're in labor. They'll encourage you to move a little bit. They'll encourage you to eat, which is really important, to drink, to try and take breaks.
To pee.
She helped, yeah, to pee. I had no problem with that, shockingly. But I was vomiting a lot during my labor. I think I had a lot of just expulsion. I had nothing in me by the time the baby was born. But yeah, she really is important, because, you know, when you're in labor, you're not thinking about drinking, you're not thinking about eating, you're not thinking about, okay, I was very thirsty because I had a water birth and the water was hot. And I was sweating a lot. So I wanted water a lot. I stayed hydrated enough, to be honest. But food, you know, energy. I was throwing up a lot, and she would just give me one date every hour, have a date, or a blueberry, or something sweet, something with sugar, just to keep me moving. So yeah, they're really like important, especially if you don't have much help during your birth. It takes the pressure off your partner as well, because even if you want to be alone for a minute, you know, they can step outside. Your partner can take shifts with your partner. So it's really good to have. And postnatally as well, you know, after the baby was born, my partner was holding the baby, and I think like a few hours after the birth, you know, you have to think, okay, I want to have a shower now. But I was so drained, I didn't have the strength. So she put me in the shower and she washed my body. She oiled me, she rubbed my feet, and we ate together, and then she went home.
That sounds so nice.
And she came, right? And she came back a few days later. I was on the phone with her every single day after the baby was born, just because I had no clue what the hell I was doing. And, it's just reassuring having that kind of support postnatally. And she brought me nipple cream and nipple pads and helped with breastfeeding, and she knows everything. Like, it's just, and she knows everything the way I want it. She's holistic, she's natural, she doesn't use drugs, she doesn't use chemicals to try and alter things. She's a firm believer in breastfeeding. So she's all the things that I wanted to be as a mother. She's a mother as well. And so, yeah, it's just having a birth keeper is like having a sister, a big sister who knows everything, who's been through everything, and who's willing to fight and advocate for your rights.
Yeah.
And support you through your whole journey from the beginning to the end. And someone who will never put you in a situation where you are compromised and your body is compromised. So I know that's a very long explanation, but that's birth keeper.
Yeah, I just want to say that, like when I was planning my birth, I kept thinking if I was gonna climb a mountain, or I don't know, swim under the ice, some weird shit. Like I wouldn't get someone who's afraid of heights, who's always like, oh, the amount of people who died at Everest or something, You get someone who's training you, practicing, preparing you, who's supporting you. So I just think
exactly.
Yeah, I think people would do better if they just put more emphasis on like supporting their mind and emotions, because your body just does what it needs to do. Like
exactly.
You don't do anything when you're giving birth. You let that shit happen.
Yeah, it's true. And that's something that she reinforced as well. And it's funny because we met quite a few times after you asked me about like how it went virtually. So virtually we started speaking in South Africa. And that was maybe like, I'm pretty sure we spoke once a month until we moved back to the UK. So she lives in London as well. And virtually what we spoke about was the practical stuff, I guess. How do you want your birth? Do you want to have a water birth? Do you want to labor on land? Why? And what would a ideal birth seem to you in a fairy tale world where you could have anything you wanted? How would you want it to go? And that's a really good baseline. If there was no restrictions on what you could have and what you could do, how would you imagine your birth? And so that's our baseline. That's how we started working. And then once we were here in the UK, she came to see us and she blessed our home. She blessed us. She blessed our baby. We did Reiki together. We spoke about, what motherhood would be like and what I expected, what I thought it would be like. So like you said, it's a very holistic approach. You're not just, you're not calculating things. You're not thinking about exactly how things are going to go. You have to be very open. And the most important thing, like you said, is your well-being and your mentality and being positive. You don't underestimate the power of positivity, because if you surround yourself with negative people who are fearful about birth, you'll have that lingering experience or thought in your head when you're going through the labor, and fear stops oxytocin. So you're literally doing yourself a disservice if you're going to have any kind of fear around having a home birth. You need to have people who are confident that you can do it, who will encourage you to do it, who have done it themselves and can attest to the process. So Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I really like your analogy. You need positive people, and there's a lot of. Oh my God, have you seen on Netflix that new movie about this woman who has a home birth and the baby dies?
Mm-mm.
Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Bro,
Came out the week I had my baby, and I was like, if this isn't a sign as to how messed up the system is, that's what they're promoting.
right? Like I was reading some studies in Kenya, right, on birth attendants and hospital births, basically. And in a lot of these studies, you find that the doctors in hospitals are bribing birth attendants to send women who come to them to the hospital. So now let's
Are you
say,
kidding?
imagine, so now let's say you go to a birth attendant, the doctor tells her for each woman you bring here, I give you 2K. And now these birth attendants are not being paid, obviously, because most people who go to birth attendants here they don't have the money, So it's a service you're doing for the community. And then they're like, women are dying in birth because they're birthing at home. But they're not thinking about the fact that the woman who's birthing at home has no money. She's probably stressed because she needs to feed herself. She needs to keep her house in check. All these other things that could affect her birth. She's not eating well.
Exactly.
And they've just ignored this, and they're like, yeah, just
and they
come to the
probably not
hospital.
had very much antenatal care, postnatal care, nothing,
Not to mention the amount of women who are raped. How many of these women are having babies by people who have assaulted them?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
That's mad.
We're getting
Kenya
off topic.
is mad. No, but it's true. You're making a good point because that is how things are in South Africa as well, which has the highest amount of C-sections in private hospitals in the world. It's 90% of women in South Africa who give birth in a hospital that's private have a C-section. And that's literally because of profits, because they make more money from doing C-sections than they do from having natural births. So if you're going into a hospital in South Africa, expect to come out with a cut. Expect to have a C-section. Right. Unless you're giving birth in a government hospital, which I think is 50%, which is still really high. So I think Africa, especially, like, profit motive is above, like, all women.
Else, like, standard, like, it's either you're paying hella money to go get a C-section, or you're going to a public hospital and risk your baby being kidnapped, you being raped.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's messed up, and it's not necessary. We've been lied to that you have to go to the hospital, but they just showed up.
It's really not. It's really not. Even here, they try and make it seem like you're doing the worst thing you could do. They try to make it seem like I'm a terrible mother for wanting to give birth at home and I'd be putting my child at risk. And I'm thinking, are you guys high on something? Because right now there's a pandemic. I'm putting myself and my child more at risk by going to a hospital.
Oh my gosh.
And secondly, like, what are the risks of me birthing at home? There are none. I live 5 minutes away from the hospital I would have given birth in. If really there was an emergency, I could be there in like literally minutes. So, once like I tackled all these issues, they still call me a week before to tell me they won't send an ambulance. As if that's gonna, constantly being threatened and told you shouldn't be doing something. You really need someone on your team. You need someone on your team who's like, you need to do this. You can do this. You're capable of doing this.
That's it for this week. If you'd like to share your story, you can email us at rubymamas14@gmail.com. To join the community, follow the podcast and leave a review or comment. Thanks for tuning in.